Okay, so good morning, everyone. I am Nick Caracal. I'm back to my Facebook Live with the intention of sharing my knowledge about U.S. immigration journey that might potentially affect your own U.S. immigration journey as well. So if you have questions, just write them on the comments section and I will try to respond kung ano mang katanungan nyo. So this is a very short presentation just to talk about the public charge policy that has been implemented and will take effect next week. So the people that I would want or I would encourage to watch this video are people who are currently in the United States, who are planning to apply for their green card application because it could potentially affect you. Also, people who are on tourist visa who plan to extend their stay or change status in the United States. And this is also particularly important for people who already have a US visa outside the United States but who also plan to come to the United States para mag-explore ng options nila and who might also consider extending their stay or changing status to anything that's available for them. Okay, so again, this is a very short um, talk. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to write them on the comments section. Okay. So hi Pam, we have now from NYC, Seriki, Manila, and some of my staff. So again, I will start with my presentation. Our topic today is basically just the public charge. How will it affect my U.S. immigration journey? So first, I would just like to have a disclaimer. This material is for reference purposes only and does not create an attorney-client relationship. So if I would be able to answer your questions specifically, it doesn't mean that you are my client, but I would love to answer your general questions anyway. So just write them down and I'll try my best to respond. So what's the legal basis of implementing the public policy? So if you actually hear in the news, the public charge policy was introduced last year, but it was challenged in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court made a decision in January saying that yes, it is within the power of the US president to implement such policy. And again, it is the INA or the Immigration Nationality Act 212A-4. It actually says an individual seeking admission to the United States or seeking to adjust status to permanent resident for those people applying for the green card is inadmissible. And we'll talk about what inadmissibility means later if the individual at the time of application for admission or adjustment of status is likely or at any time become a public charge. Hi, Darren Castillo. Okay, we'll respond if it affects the removal of condition mamaya. Okay, so just hold on to your question. Babalikan kita after. So let's start with understanding what public charge means. So under the old rule, it means a person who is or is likely to become primarily dependent on the government for income support. So it means that if you are receiving money from the government, whether it's under the federal agency or under the state, then most likely you are a public charge. But let's talk about some examples later. Now, with the implementation of the public policy, recent one, they added a new provision that says public charge are those people or any person who is or is likely to receive any number of public benefits. Hide ko lang muna yung mukha ko dito. In the aggregate of 12 months over any 36-month period. So if you actually use any of these benefits, so let's say if you are actually receiving using food stamps or actually receiving a rent subsidy from the government in 1 month, then they would actually count that as two counts for public charge benefit calculation. And we'll go over the details of that mamaya. So ang sinasabi lang natin dito, the government may find you to become a public charge if you are actually receiving cash from the federal government or from the state giving you cash to help you live in the United States. So then you become primarily dependent on the government for income support, and we'll talk about examples later. But under the new rule, the actually says that, hey, if you are taking advantage of any public benefits for the next 12 months over 36-month period, then you are most likely become a public charge. So let's say, kasi very common in the US that people who are actually using Medicaid. So is the use of Medicaid automatically becomes a reason to deny your green card application? Not necessarily. So using public charge per se does not automatically disqualify you from getting your green card or applying for a visa or being approved for an extension of your tourist visa or changing status from tourist visa to, let's say, student visa. But if you are actually using or being enrolled, let's say for Medicaid for the next 12 months over the last 3 years, then chances are you will be found guilty of or becoming a public charge. And that it will be enough for the government to deny your green card application, your extension, or your change of status. And we'll talk about the impact of being denied on any of those applications. So again, wala pa akong nakikitang. So let's talk about Haipam Ocampo is studying in a public high school considered a public charge. So not necessarily. So uh, one of the exceptions of the public charge are actually people who are using public benefits under the age of 21. So good news, good that's good news for you, Pam. That will not be considered a public charge. So again, for Darren, I will respond. I will answer your question in a bit. So when is the effectivity of the new public policy? It will be effective on Monday. Ano-ano ba ang mga cases that will be affected by the new public policy? So it will affect all applications for green card, visa extension, so yung mga tourist visa holder who are currently in the United States, o kung may family members kayo or may mga kaibigan kayo who are currently holding a tourist visa in the United States and plan to change status to, let's say, student visa or extend their stay, then I would recommend that they consult a lawyer as to how the public charge policy will affect them. Okay, so hold on muna ako, tanungin ko muna to, sasagutin ko muna itong tanong ni Karel Bolante. Hi, attorney, what about credit card, bank statement, condo? Okay, boss, that's a very good question. Let's talk about that examples on what factors will the officer use to assess whether or not you are part of or you will fall under the public policy charge. Hi, Ma'am Rosalinda. Good morning. So, balik tayo dito. So, as of now, the public policy will affect only green card applications, visa extensions, and change of status, and other non-immigrant applications just like H-1B, or this is the specialty occupations, right? And then this policy also does not apply for applicants in the state of Illinois because this is now being currently challenged in the federal court. Frank Pistania, will this also affect the senior citizen? Good news for you. This doesn't cover for people who are 60 years old or above. But mag-advance na ako dito, if that person will plan to petition their family members based on the family-based petition, then they might have a chance na yung application na yun will be denied, no? So the senior citizen will not be subject to deportation or whatever, but if they plan to petition their family members, chances are the petition will be denied. But we'll get back to you again to talk about the details of that scenario when we go to that particular slide. So again, for green card applications that already been pending or will be filed this week, hindi siya covered sa policy na to. This includes also visa extensions or change of status. So I would recommend that if you are planning to extend or to change or apply for green card, do it on Friday. So it does not apply for applicants living in Illinois. And may tanong mamaya, does it affect for people applying for their immigrant visa at the U.S. Embassy outside the United States, of course, right? So the Department of Homeland Security actually adopted the same measure because the public policy has been implemented by USCIS, so it means applications within the United States. But the Department of Homeland Security, who is also in charge or overseeing the US embassies, they are actually adopting the same policy, but they put it on hold. Chances are in the next few days, they will adopt the same policy issued by USCIS. So kung ako kayo na na-issuehan ng mga visa, I would recommend that you come to the United States before the Department of Homeland Security will adopt those measures. Okay? So, let's move on. Why is this important? Okay? So, bakit ba natin pinag-uusapan ang public charge policy na to? If the government will find you a public charge and you are a green card holder who is outside the United States for 6 months or more, then at the port of entry, when you come back, you might be denied entry if the officer will find out that you are using public benefits. So, if you are your green card holder now currently outside the United States, I would recommend that you come back to the US before the 6th month, because if you stay outside the United States for 6 months or more, when you come back, it will trigger the officer to look into your public benefits, yung paggagamit mo, right? And there is a chance that you might be denied entry at the port of entry pagdating mo sa airport. So, check your stay outside the United States. It will also make ineligible to become a permanent resident. So, ibig sabihin, yung nag-a-apply nga ng green card dito sa US, then they might be denied their green card applications if the officer in charge of your application will find out that you are a public charge. And there is an additional requirement for those applicants now. It's an 18-page report, meaning the self-sufficiency declaration. Ibig sabihin, you as the applicant has the obligation to declare whether or not you are using public benefits. If you don't declare, so let's say you are actually receiving food stamps, or if you are actually getting cash from the state or from the federal government, and you are not declaring that, but of course USCIS has the way of knowing whether or not you are using public benefits, then you might be found misrepresenting. So again, be honest in all those applications, especially at the time of the interview. And this is misrepresentation is a bigger sin than public charge, though both grounds will have the same result. You can be deported if your green card application will be denied. Second, ground for deportation. And let's talk about people who are applying for visa extension. So let's say tourist visa holder ka, nag-apply ka ng extension, the government finds out that you are actually using public benefits, you are receiving cash from the state of the federal government, or you are actually taking advantage of food stamps and other non-cash public benefits, then they can deny your application. For the last 2 to 3 months, we've been actually seeing a lot of an increased number of notice to appear. So it means that once your visa extension or your change of status application has been denied, the government or USCIS is sending you a notice to appear at the immigration court. It actually means that you are now placed under deportation proceedings. And you have no choice but appear in those notices, because if you don't appear or failure to appear in those NTAs or notice to appear, ang susunod na notice non warrant of arrests. Okay? So just take those notices very seriously, because it has very serious consequence. And at the time na nag-apply ka ng extension or yung change of status, the government has your information kung saan ka nakatira. They also have their contact information, whether it's through email or through phone. So they could basically contact you. I have a question here from Samuel Denton. Hello po, my mom, 69, is my petitioner who is receiving benefits from government such as food stamps and Medicaid. I have a pending petition approved F2B. Okay, first, congratulations, Samuel, for your approved petition. Again, as I actually mentioned a while ago, the Department of Homeland Security has put on hold their version of the public charge policy. So currently, hindi pa ngayon ini-implement sa US Embassy. How old are you, by the way? Because if The age of the petitioner doesn't really matter much as far as your application is concerned for those people who are appearing for interview at the embassy. So, pero if uh, by the time, maybe 1 month from now, if the Department of Homeland Security adopts same policy, then let's see what the implementing rules are. Sa ngayon, wala pang ganon. So I think you are lucky if you could actually process your visa interview at the embassy as soon as time possible. Okay? So you're 34 years old. So again, boss, sa ngayon, wala pang implementing rules, or the Department of Homeland Security has not adopted the same measure yet. So you are actually lucky uh, na hindi pa na-adapt yun. And I hope you will have your interview scheduled soon. Again, ground for deportation for people applying for extension and change of status and found guilty or being found a public charge because they are using public benefits. Once they are denied, it can be used as a ground for them to be deported. Let's move on. Who are not affected by this policy? So again, the new public charge policy does not cover US citizens. So ibig sabihin, kung ang parents nyo or family members nyo are receiving money from the federal government or from the state, they are not covered by the public policy. Green card holders lawfully residing in the United States who are also receiving public benefits of which they are allowed. So example, we will talk about Medicaid later. If they are using that, but they have justification why they are using that, example, for a medical emergency, then it cannot be used against them. We'll talk about later kung yung mga green card holder mag-a-apply ng citizenship, will it affect if the government finds out that they are using public charge? Mayroon tayong slide dyan mamaya. Okay, I just don't want to complicate our conversation slide by slide. We will talk about the topic. So as discussed a while ago, if you are a green card holder residing outside the United States, do not stay outside the US for 6 months or more, because if you do, when you come back, the officer might take a look at your records if whether or not you are receiving public benefits. If they find that out, you can be denied entry pagpasok niyo sa US. Hi, hello, Ma'am Joanne. No, our office is in New York and in Davao, but we assist clients all over the world. So if you have a question, you can send us a private message po. Okay, however, if found to be public charge, the petitioner may have difficulty or challenges having their petitions filed to be approved, because what will happen, and again, wala pang implementing rules ang Department of Homeland Security sa ngayon as far as those people appearing for interview at the embassy. But once that's being approved and implemented, they might have difficulty getting an approval if their petitioner, whether it is a US citizen or a green card holder, are receiving public benefits. Okay? Hi, Ma'am Christine. Hello, Attorney. 10 years ago, I used public benefits but planning to re-enter US this summer. Is there a possibility to deny my entry? I'm not so sure if you are a green card holder or a tourist visa holder. The good news for you, though, is the new public policy is not retroactive. So meaning, if you receive public benefits before February 24, 2020, that's Monday, then they will not use that for purposes of public charge determination. So you're lucky then. Will it affect if the officer asks you about public benefits? So then again, I need more information about your question. If you are a green card holder, chances are hindi, for as long as you didn't stay outside the US for 6 months. If you are a tourist visa holder, public benefits, common mga scenarios na ginagamit ang public benefits ay yung nanganganak sa US. Then make sure, if assuming that's your situation, make sure lang that you have proof that you paid for your medical expenses. Because if not, then they might deny your entry to the US. Sir Marco, attorney, paano ang dapat gawin kapag ang NBI clearances no criminal record? Okay, boss, I'm sorry, it's outside of the topic now, but I will respond to you after the Facebook Live, okay? Tourist visa, Ma'am Christine. Okay, so again, hindi ko alam kung anong klaseng public benefit ang na-avail mo. If you are referring to a medical benefit, then make sure na binayaran mo yon and you didn't use Medicaid to pay for those. Ma'am Christine, I think mayroon tayong schedule this week or next week for um, consultation, right? So we'll talk about the details of your case at that point in time. Wala daw nakikita. Oh, I'm sorry if it's not showing in a slide. So if that is the case, I will just shift to my face being shown. Can you tell me if you can see my screen now? There you go. Okay. Can you tell me if you're seeing the screen now? Okay, Frank Pistano. Sir, just to make it clear again, since I petitioned my mom last October 15 as priority date, still waiting for approval. Okay, so Sir Frank, wala pang implementing rules at the consulate. So you should be okay for now. Ma'am Maricel Perez, I'm F2B visa po kaso na-deny po ako kasi sa status ko po nagpakasal po ako. Okay, ma'am, your situation is different from the public charge. I recommend that you send us a message and we'll talk about your case. Okay? Okay, very good. Thank you po. So sorry for that. Yung slides, I'm glad na nakikita nyo na. So again, US citizens and green card holders are not covered by the public charge policy na to, but it could potentially affect your application if they are filing petitions for you. So I would recommend that before you appear for your interview, that you consult with an immigration lawyer para mag-guide kayo before you get a denial. Okay? Getting advice by a lawyer prior to you appearing for interview is better than being denied at the interview and then you might need a waiver and so on and so forth. It will just get complicated. Okay? I would recommend that you consult a lawyer first. So again, I am halfway through my presentation. If you have questions, I would recommend that you post it on the comment section now before we end this presentation. Okay, so other groups of people who are not affected by this policy. So refugees, asylees, victims of trafficking. So yung mga relatives nyo and friends nyo who are holding a T visa or a U visa or victims of domestic violence, even if they are using public benefits, they are not affected by this policy. Okay? So, kanina pa natin to pinag-uusapan ano ba yung public benefits. So, there are two types of public benefits. The cash aid for low-income families. So, this includes the Supplemental Security Income or SSI. So, I would recommend that yung mga, especially on the fiancé visa, spouse visa applicants, right? Some or majority of the petitioners are actually receiving SSI. I would recommend that you consult a lawyer if it would impact your application. So again, wala pang implementing rules sa Department of Homeland Security affecting embassies, so you're lucky for now. If your petitioners are receiving cash from the federal government or the state, chances are could affect your application. Non-cash public benefits. So ang pinaka-common dito at maraming gumagamit na Pinoy, ang Medicaid. Food stamp are now also included by the public charge policy nowadays. But there are exceptions to that. So unahan ko na mamaya meron yata akong slide kung sino yung mga exempted from that. May mga cases din where yung mga aplikante natin are receiving supplements, cash supplements from the government for their housing, yung rental expense nila na binabayaran ng government. So it could potentially affect their application. So I hope at this point in time, naintindihan nyo na yung public charge. Okay? So, public charge means kung ikaw gumagamit or receiving cash from the federal government or the state government, then chances are you are a public charge. Or if you are actually using non-cash benefits from the government, chances are you are also a public charge. But again, assuming gumagamit ka ng Medicaid, does that mean that you will be denied in any application that you're going to? Not necessarily. So, ang bagong policy ngayon is if you are using 12 months public benefits for the last 36 months in that any given period, then chances are you will be found guilty of being a public charge. So, let's say you are using food stamps and you are also receiving cash for your rent subsidy from the government in 1 month, then you are actually using 2 counts of public benefits. So if you are enrolled in Medicaid for the last 12 months, then you can be found guilty of public charge. So before this public charge policy took effect, whenever a family-based petition filed an affidavit of support and they actually meet the income or poverty guidelines of 125% of again the income requirement required by the government, then okay na. As of next week, when the public charge policy took effect, having an income more than 125% is not enough. Because now, you, the applicant, again, green card holders, extensions, change of status, will be required to submit a self-sufficiency form where you have to disclose all of the public benefits that you are actually using. So, totality of circumstance rule means na hindi lang isang aspeto ang gagamitin ng officer to make a decision whether or not you are a public charge. They will also now require you to declare may health insurance ka ba. Of course, your age and health will be considered. Family status, kung ilang tao ba nakatira sa bahay nyo at kung sino ang nagsusupport sa household na yon. They will look into your assets and resources. They will now check your income and liabilities. You are now required to declare your credit score. If there is bankruptcy, they are also looking into your education level and your skills to have that all factors being considered for them to be able to make a public charge determination. So it actually goes to show that in cases of green card applications, visa extension, and change of status, it becomes more complicated because now you have to make these declarations. Okay, so wala pa namang nagtatanong, right? Tuloy lang tayo. Will it affect my US citizenship application? So for green card holders na planong mag-apply ng citizenship even if they are using or receiving public benefits, good news for you, the government cannot use public charge to deny your citizenship applications. So pag-usapan natin ano yung mga benefits that any green card holder could have been using and they are planning to apply for citizenship. Balikan ko na rin yung tanong kanina about the removal of conditions. So, ibig sabihin, those are people who are actually holding a 2-year green card, and what if they are using public benefits? Will it affect their 10-year green card application? Good news is, hindi. So, you are already considered a green card holder and not an applicant for a green card. So, even if you are using public benefits, it will not affect your 10-year green card application. Okay, so that's good news for you. For Marco, attorney, need ba ang bank account sa F2B application? Bank accounts, hindi naman, boss. So normally at this point in time, the embassy will require the petitioner to submit income tax returns, 3 months pay stubs, and potentially a certificate of employment to determine if they have the capacity to support you. Susan Cruz, will it affect immigration waiver application? So, Ma'am Susan, hindi ko alam what waiver you are referring to. Okay? But if you are talking about fee waivers, so ibig sabihin may mga applicants in the US who cannot afford to pay filing fees, and in some instances they will be approved of a fee waiver. The government will accept their application without filing a fee. Uh, it will now be considered for public charge policy, but for waiver, in general, again, ma'am, I'm not so sure what waiver are we talking about, you know. So the only waiver that can affect public charge policy are the fee waiver exemption, because it means that that applicant could potentially be a public charge because they cannot even afford to pay a fee. But again, that reason alone will not be enough to deny an application. It's just one of the factors that the officer will consider to determine public charge. Is charity care considered medic aid? Ma'am, you have to check at the back of your card kung may tatak doon na this is funded by the state, and then may nakatatak na Medicaid, then chances are it is a public benefit. So check your card or policy. Ito yung mga exceptions na hindi magagamit ng government to deny a citizenship application enjoyed by green card holders. Medical assistance for emergency medical condition, right? So suddenly na heart attack ka, just for an example, and you wala kang insurance, of course you use the Medicaid assistance because it's an emergency, right? O bigla kang nanganak, it's also considered an emergency. Public health assistance for immunosuppressive diseases. So, halimbawa, may TB ka and you are required to go attend those sessions for your treatment and you are a green card holder, it will not be used for purposes of public charge determination. Student assistance, kagaya nung nagtanong kanina, for higher education, hindi rin pwedeng gamitin as a factor to deny your application kasi you are entitled to those. Another example here, public benefits received by people under 21 years old. So yung mga anak nyo, estudyante, receiving funds, whether cash or non-cash, are not counted for public charge. Medicaid for emergency medical condition, we talk about that. Medicaid during pregnancy and during the 60-day period after the last day of pregnancy are also not covered for public charge policy. So I think that's good news for people giving birth and who are pregnant, no? And you are actually using Medicaid because it will not be used against you. Okay? So this is my last two slides. So kung may tanong kayo, just write it down. So masagot ko during our FB Live. Else, after na ng session natin sasagutin. Okay, Sir Marco, as far as ano ba dapat ang minimum na annual income? Sir, you could actually search on uscis.gov. Check mo 864P. Yun yung form that defines ano yung income requirement for affidavit of support. So I would encourage you to check that. So after we've talked about for the last few minutes, what now, right? Ano bang pwede nating gawin para hindi kayo found as a public charge? So if you are now enrolled in any public benefits, kagaya ng Medicaid, I would encourage you to disenroll or withdraw from any public benefit programs that you are currently enrolled in. Right? So if you are receiving subsidy sa rent, if you are receiving Medicaid, if you are receiving food stamps, I would recommend that you disenroll because they can now use that. So again, being enrolled in those programs for the last 12 months can be used against you and be found guilty of public charge. File your green card, visa extension, change of status, or other non-immigrant visas in the U.S. on or before February 24. So that actually means if you could file it on Friday, and even if USCIS will receive it on Monday, they would still consider it as timely filed, and you will not be subject to the new rules. So you only have 2 days left to be able to do that. And then the last one, for green card holders, do not stay outside the U.S. for 6 months or more, because once you enter, it could actually trigger for the trigger to look into your public charge or public benefits availment at the time of your re-entry. Okay? So that would actually summarize kung kayo are actually, again, that will help you make a decision na ma-avoid nyo yung public charge um, findings sa inyo if you actually look into these 3 points here. We have a question here from Sir Ricky. If you have a Medicaid benefit but you haven't used it, is that a public charge? Sa ngayon, boss, if you're enrolled for the next 12 months, yes. So I would recommend that you disenroll in or withdraw from the Medicaid insurance that you're currently holding. Okay, so that actually ends our discussion on public charge. So if you have further questions, you can just write them down on the comments section. I will find time to answer them. For the time being, you can actually follow us on Facebook or YouTube for other US immigration updates. Next week, I have another Facebook Live concerning about what's going on at the embassy because currently now, especially if you have friends and relatives who are nurses, you actually hear about 221G. What that does mean? What does that mean is yung mga visa issuance nila na delay, some of them gets denied eventually. So if you would want to understand what's going on at the embassy, check out our event schedule or Facebook Live next week. Again, maraming salamat po and thanks for tuning in. Thank you.